A promise rings out to open the film someday. Glory arrives, one voice insists. Behind it, a producer frames the project, an underdog story built to reach anyone watching. On the court, a dare cuts through the noise, someone challenging another to prove what they've got. Unanimous Media's partnership with Sony Pictures Animation reads to the producer like a rare, ready-made fit. The kind of pairing design seems to have assembled rather than chance. A swish call punctuates a passing shot. No one, the producer adds, could have handed this vision to a better group of collaborators. An announcer's call rises over a roar of grunts on screen. Will Harris nails the winning shot. Stephen Curry, weighing in on the project, calls the story hopefully inspiring, the kind that pulls a viewer into a world worth talking about for years to come. He ties that same ambition to making this generation's defining sports film. Disbelief lands like a punchline inside the clip itself, a character double-checking that the star player really is a GOAT. The gag lands, and laughter breaks over the room. Dillahuey agrees. To him, this is the underdog film built for right now. Dillahuey traces the company's origin. He and Stephen Curry found Unanimous together in 2018, and one of the earliest pitches to land on their desk turns into GOAT itself, a story built around a young Billy Goat who plays basketball. The concept meets no resistance. Enthusiasm greets it instantly. On screen, the GOAT introduces himself with a boast about seeing everything around him. Advisors bring more than basketball knowledge to the production, Dillahuey points out. They weigh in on character, on celebrity, on what it actually feels like to live inside this world. Stephen Curry's own story and the character Will's story collide in ways that feel deliberate rather than coincidental. Much of Dillahuey's own path, he notes, mirrors Will's climb. Peyton marks that convergence, the instant the team recognizes it has something rare on its hands. On screen, a character warms to an idea just floated, a small grin replacing hesitation. Rosenberg picks up the commentary from there, describing his own grasp of what the underdog story reaches for. The scale of what animation and art could bring to that story leaves him nearly overwhelmed. A mentor figure in the film tells someone they are exactly what the team needs right then, the line landing like pure encouragement rather than exposition. The commentary returns to note how differently the studio approaches each of its films. GOAT shares no DNA with Spider-Verse, Open Season, K-pop Demon Hunters, or Smurfs. It stands entirely on its own. Archie, meanwhile, eggs Will on inside the film, daring him to prove that his size means nothing. The first look at the art style draws open uncertainty from the team. Nobody is sure how to pull it off. The answer that comes back is simple: go try. That freedom, without imposed boundaries, brings the true soul of each artist into view. And that, the team agrees, is what makes this place special and what makes every film made here special. From outside, Sony Animation looks like any other studio. Step behind its doors, though, and a genuinely magical place reveals itself. Rosette lays out the studio's reach across camera work, layout, animation, and the final picture, insisting the team doesn't chase trends, it sets them. A burst of cheering rises over a shot, seeming proof of the point. Curry returns to credit the people around any project for whatever greatness it reaches, calling it the power of the team more than any single talent. An elite roster of world-class artisans anchors the film from the top down, with hundreds of people touching it on any given day. Someone points toward the noise of a crowd going wild, using it for evidence of the same idea. This movie, the commentary concludes, comes from an incredible crew and a massive undertaking. Early on, the production consists only of writers, a story department, and a handful of concept artists. Ciruno, one of the character designers on GOAT, describes working across all of the film's main characters alongside a concept designer based remotely in Slovenia. Together with the director and producers, Ciruno helps break the script down into sequences. At the design department's peak, roughly 10 artists work beside her. One crew member, a visual effects supervisor, tracks the entire pipeline, from asset creation through the final pass with lighting and compositing teams. Further into production, the edit team joins the process, and storyboards begin taking shape into cut sequences. Concept artists push deeper into the animals themselves, giant characters that demand real invention. Hair and fur grow into the single biggest challenge, compounded further by clothing layered on top of it. Daskas pulls up a reference model, Dennis, to demonstrate deliberately crude hair at this stage built from a handful of different fur brushes and painted directly over the base model. Luchivo flags the fur in motion problem as a huge challenge on both technical and creative fronts, one that ends up driving more decisions than anything else on the film. The animals need to move mostly upright, on two legs, shifting organically into a more natural, four-legged gait when the action calls for it. Directors keep pushing the team to start from real animal reference footage, then exaggerate freely from there. Each actor's voice, too, turns into a steady point of reference for how a character should move. The commentary turns to the voice cast, praising an unusually gifted group bringing comedy, heart, and soul in equal measure. On screen, one character needles another good-naturedly before showing off a fresh idea. To prepare the actors, the team shares character artwork and turnarounds, both 2D and 3D, depending on how far along production has gotten. Seeing the character ahead of time changes how a performer brings them to life, the commentary points out. With that mental picture already in place, a director's job narrows down to moral support, guiding the actor through each shot rather than describing the character from scratch. Excitement spikes inside the film itself. A character can't quite believe access to the Thorns' locker room, the reaction landing like a squeal. Off-screen, the actor recalls how much fun came from testing different versions of Will's comedic beats with Tyree, the two of them diving into the character's world together. Working opposite Tyree feels effortless, like watching someone move through material they know inside and out. The actor singles out staying coachable in the booth as the best part, the same discipline that carries over from the court. A quick back and forth inside the film, one character needling another about going viral, punctuates the point with a laugh. Shooting reference footage, nicknamed the lipstick camera around the studio, turns into an invaluable resource for the animators. Those recordings let the team see exactly what a voice actor does with their whole body while performing a line, not just their voice. Prop notices the effect directly in the storyboards. The drawn characters start to resemble the actors playing them. Inside the film, one back and forth sends two characters out the door with an order to get lost, affection wrapped inside the dismissal. The performer delivering it takes genuine pleasure afterward in that particular beat. Pozo points to Gabrielle Union, who voices Jet, a performer leaning hard into her hands while acting, gesturing vividly enough that the habit works its way into his own performance. A lifetime spent watching and playing basketball gives him plenty of room to ad-lib and improvise on the character. What he values most about working with Tyree is having him physically present in the booth, acting it out rather than recording alone. Tyree will stand up, throw himself into the take bodily, and perform right alongside him. On screen, one character rallies another to prove exactly who the real GOAT is. Oswalt describes the film's central trick. The characters pull an audience in on a purely human level before a big laugh lands. The surprise coming from how each one suddenly responds to its own animal instincts. Finding comedy inside those natural animal traits turns into one of the production's biggest running goals. A blunt challenge from inside the film, someone demanding to know what another is waiting for, sets up exactly that kind of gag. Will's own defining bit is an appetite for anything nearby, even something inedible, a can included. On screen, that habit plays out directly. Will gasps in surprise mid-bite, Jet reacts with alarm, and the can itself protests that it doesn't taste good at all. A second example repeats the same formula. A water bottle catches Jet square in the face, and she fires back nothing but an indignant meow. The commentary praises the bit as hilarious, plain and simple. Moto earns his own runner of a joke, a character who is always eating, forever trying to fold Will into the same appetite that currently has him working through a handful of grapes. Inside the film, Moto threatens to unhinge his own jaw for effect, and Will scrambles backward, pleading not to be eaten. One favorite beat singled out in the commentary is the villain's first big entrance, main attraction, holding court at a cage in Vineland, calling out anyone willing to face him one-on-one. He punctuates the challenge with a little dressage dance, lifted straight from how an actual horse moves and played for laughs. A crowd inside the film erupts at the sight of easy money on a wager, cheering the whole back and forth on. Rothman describes Roarball itself as a strange, workable mix, deeply observed, insider-level basketball fused with pure imagination. A stray line inside the film underscores the stakes literally, with one character offering up his own skin for the play. Nearly anything the team can imagine ends up expanding the sport further, and for the artists and animators involved, that open door turns into less a burden than a challenge they genuinely love. A muttered line of relief closes the beat. Directors push hard for one specific feeling throughout, the sense of actually being a player out on the court, not just watching one from the stands. That ambition drives a huge amount of dynamic motion and animation work. Every detail bows to realism after that, down to how a foot plants, how weight shifts between strides, and how a hand holds and dribbles a ball. Camera work and editing carry equal weight across every cut, built specifically to pull a viewer inside the movie rather than leave them outside it. A roar cuts through one clip, punctuating the beat. Andre Iguodala signs on, the film's basketball advisor, walking the team through exactly how a pass and a cut connect in real time, meeting the ball at the same instant a teammate releases it. That level of detail carries through to the finished gameplay. Every shot, dribble, and pass reads true. Several sequences, in fact, restage true plays actually run by the Golden State Warriors. One deliberate stylistic choice rules out motion blur entirely across the picture. A quick aside inside the film, someone chuckling over whether they've struck a deal, offers a breath before the technical discussion resumes. Without blur to lean on, the team invents its own workaround, hand-painted motion streaks, added selectively wherever a shot needs extra push to read exciting rather than static. That solution ends up delivering exactly the kind of immersive impact the directors are chasing. A horse's whinny punctuates one such beat on screen. At Sony, one artist notes, art and artists themselves steer the priorities, not the other way around. The goal stays specific and grounded in truth, but always anchored to character, to the feelings, emotions, and relationships that hold this animal world together. A line of encouragement inside the film urges dreaming big, no ceiling on it. Bringing an entire animal world to life visually produces something audiences genuinely haven't seen before, the commentary observes. Passion runs through every level of the production, by every account given. Each department brings its own top-tier craft to the table, and the directors weave all of it together into something seamless. One collaborator credits sheer proximity to that talent, calling it a privilege, adding real gratitude that anyone bothers listening to their input at all. Inside the film, a triumphant announcement locks the Thorns into staying in Vineland, and the crowd answers with its own roar. GOAT, in the commentary's own framing, comes from real effort and grit, built to feel relatable to anyone watching. A rallying cry rises from inside the film itself. Roots run deep. That phrase grows, the commentary explains, into something larger than any single sequence, a line the animals of Vineland return to again and again. Its meaning stretches well past the sport, landing instead on the idea of community. Working on the film roots that phrase in several collaborators personally, tied to the larger point that teamwork, not individual talent, wins championships. That commitment shows plainly in the finished picture, where every frame carries real beauty. The same phrase rolls back and forth across a stadium of voices, one line handed off between the crowd and the animals on screen until it swells into a single chant. Laughter ripples underneath it, and a stray bleat cuts through the noise, the picture fading on that shared refrain. Enthusiasm for comedy opens the account, with one of the filmmakers insisting the whole point was to make this the funniest film possible. A dry complaint about sharing shots with a goat lands, and someone else points out flatly that the goat is sitting right there. A quick yelp punctuates the joke. Another voice traces the film's sense of humor back to the cast itself, and a clipped go-ahead carries the energy forward. Confusion about sightlines on the court turns into a punchline about seeing a goat from the stands, and a reply promises to wear the Thorns jersey regardless. Making faces for the camera, one performer describes just how far the exaggeration had to go before the team decided they were ready to change the game. Casting talk widens the frame. An incredible ensemble comes together across film, theater, television, sports, music, comedy, and celebrity, with a genius monkey coach folding into the mix. Excitement builds around an all-star roster of voices set to bring GOAT to life, and directing talent drawn from every corner of culture strikes one commentator as genuinely remarkable stuff. A pun about Will opens the door to the film's lead, Caleb McLaughlin, who takes on the role of Will Harris. Someone calls the discovery of McLaughlin a gem, and McLaughlin himself barely finds words for it. Attraction to the role came fast for one collaborator, pulled toward Will's upbringing, his coming of age, and his drive to be great. It speaks to him personally. McLaughlin adds that Will's journey mirrors where he stands in his own life right now. Dillahay calls Will an incredible character, the kind of guy people either want to be or want for a friend. A chant of "Roots Run Deep" rises from the group, echoed back by everyone in the room. Finding Will's voice meant chasing his laugh, his cadence, and his rhythm before a line about showing off his skills closes the beat. A comparison to Steph Curry comes up, short in stature, total control of the room regardless. Raimo Kuyate calls Will an optimist and a connector, someone who pulls people and the community together. A line about a mother's advice to dream big plays straight from the film itself. The best part of Will's arc isn't only his own story, but the ripple effect he has on everyone around him. A taunt about ownership closes out the clip. Attention shifts to Jet, an aging superstar introduced here, having won everything except the one championship that matters. She cuts a figure unlike anything seen before in this kind of film, a true female alpha, built to contrast sharply with Will. A demand to be put back in the game underscores her hunger to win. No other actress on the planet, by the commentary's account, could have played Jet except Gabrielle Union. Seeing Jet for the first time surprised Union by her sheer scale, and matching that size meant reshaping how she used her own voice for the role. A plea for the ball and a refusal to go out easily carried Jet's competitive edge into her every appearance. Real vulnerability and real courage sit underneath admitting fault, Union explains, and she builds Jet's arc to show exactly that. A great play draws praise on screen, answered by a line about the wait being worth it. Union sums up the film's real thesis. Heart drives a champion more than anything else, with a chant of roots run deep cutting through underneath it. Sincerity anchors a promise that the character means every word, alongside a need for the people around her. Dillahay introduces Stephen Curry's Lenny, calling him the man, the myth, the legend. A description of a baby goat approaching with a strange smile lands like a joke inside the clip. Curry credits the fact that playing Lenny the giraffe amuses him precisely because he's nowhere near the tallest player on the court in real life. Lenny's laid-back, casual energy brings much of the comedy and the laughs to the team, and a shift in tempo underscores the character's easy rhythm. Lenny the giraffe ranks among the favorite characters for those who worked on him, from the way he dresses to the particular cadence of his speech. Curry's first words on arrival were an admission that he'd never done this before but considered himself coachable, and that alone won everyone over. Chemistry with a co-star made the work enjoyable, and bringing Lenny to life turned into a genuine pleasure. Lenny's zen-like calm made him a fun design, drawing comparisons to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Curry rarely gets to play above the rim in real life, so living through Lenny vicariously becomes its own reward. A roar and a triumphant boom shakalaka call mark the beat. Every underdog story needs an antagonist, and a taunt about being too small lands hard. That antagonist arrives in Aaron Pierre, cast in the role of Mon Attraction. A mocking question about facing down a goat and a sneer about all Vineland has to offer define the character's contempt. Dillahay calls Pierre a well-rounded actor delivering an equally well-rounded performance, a strong opponent built to test Will's underdog arc. A grunt from the character punctuates the confrontation. A boast about being that bird opens the introduction of Olivia Burke, the ostrich, expected to connect easily with younger audiences given her attachment to her phone. Being tagged in something that finally didn't bring tears marks a small victory for her. Nicola gives the character a bubbly, fun personality that pops the instant she appears on screen. A declaration of self-worth closes one clip. Knight points out that Olivia's Irish identity carried through authentically, since the actress used her own voice, Galway accent included. Outrage at disrespect, aimed at birds generally, punctuates the humor, and a diagnosis of flightless bird syndrome caps the joke. Dillahay introduces David Harbour's Archie, the veteran enforcer nicknamed the girl dad with a soft side. Relief and a complaint about crazy girls color his home life on screen. The production needed an actor able to carry real physical weight for muscling opponents on the court, then pivot off it to reveal tenderness and vulnerability as a father to twin daughters. Charles Barkley supplied one inspiration for Archie, and the character's design ended up shaping how many other characters in the film came together. Harbour's ad-libs run throughout the film, making the character funnier than anyone expected, earning him credit for the result. Instructions to hold the perimeter and space the floor meet a confident promise to always deliver. Every ensemble comedy needs a source of pure, lighthearted fun, and Rosette points to Moto Olachenko for that wild card, unpredictable and entirely original. A joke about molted skin lands like pure character comedy. Moto, a Komodo dragon, draws his aesthetic and vibe loosely from Dennis Rodman, cast in the role of the wild man of the Vineland Thorns. Seeing himself as an icon made the role an easy reach for the performer. A line about liking the weirdness closes the thought. Working on Moto came easier in some ways, since both collaborators brought genuinely funny ideas to the table. His wildness let the team push the character to enter frames from any direction, top, bottom, or side, all in keeping with his chaotic personality. A jab about enjoying early retirement targets Jet directly. Jennifer Lewis plays Flo, the team's owner, brought in specifically to stir up trouble. A line about always playing the villain underscores the type, followed by an offer extended with clear intent. Flo's concept design impressed from the start, one artist recalls, the challenge lying in taking a warthog and making her look dignified yet executive by the time the character reached final form. A nickname, Grumpy Cat, lands warmly, and small details in her design carry real magic. A greeting shows respect for Coach Dennis, met with a correction that coach is a strong word for what amounts to an underpaid clipboard stand. Laughter and a small cheer close the back and forth. Landing voice talent royalty Patton Oswalt for Coach Dennis brings visible gratitude from the team. Oswalt calls the role his favorite kind of character, an authority figure with no actual authority whatsoever. Jet's name cuts straight into the conversation. Rosette traces it back. Dennis wanted what Will has now but never got his own shot, so his dream carries forward through Will instead. A formal announcement names Dennis the new head coach of the Thorns, and a protest fires back instantly that someone already holds that job. Dennis anchors the team, the glue behind its whole ethos of shared effort. A warning about a fleeting opportunity gives way to a darker one. Public humiliation, by contrast, lasts forever. The day Dennis pins on the whistle, coach again, marks the biggest high point of the shoot for one performer, and the take blows out his voice in the process. A vow to rip the heart out of the league and force everyone to look at it draws a satisfied nod in response, the team reading it as a fire lit under the league by roasting it outright. A parent's promise to take their child to their very first Roarball game meets a startled reaction from Will. Jennifer Hudson takes on the demanding task of anchoring the film emotionally from its opening minutes to its close, grounding the heart, the soul, and Will's whole reason for wanting to win. A line about wishing big carries that theme directly into the film, and the achievement comes off magnificently. A warning about running only off the court gives way to an order to leave immediately. Rosette introduces Grizz, the protector, the enforcer, the biggest threat inside the local cage, backed by a taunt that no one makes it into roar past him. Off-screen, Grizz turns out to be one of the sweetest people anyone on the project has met, his gravelly voice belying the warmth behind it. A declaration of home turf and a mocking welcome to the cage mark his screen presence. Rosette built every character to show the full range of human experience, illustrated by Carol's cheerful admission of being the ultimate hater and a petty refusal of pie. A cry that miracles can happen sets up Will Harris scoring the win, met with disbelief that he's really on the actual Thorns now. A demand for rent money by morning and a jab about not hurting oneself, Grandma, keep the trash talk flowing on court. Threats to lock an opponent down and to make him bleed escalate the tension, alongside a taunt about upsetting the little goat. A whistle calls time out on Magma, and a jab about guarding shoelaces closes the back and forth. The team wanted to pull all of that lived reality onto the screen and hand it to the world, ending with a call to rally behind Vineland. Game night opens the special, framed by an in-universe announcer welcoming viewers back to regionally organized Animal Roarball. Wild courts define the sport, 6 of them, each built with next-level detail. Lava fields sit beside ice flows, desert dunes sit beside mountain peaks per Dillyhay, and every region pushes the animals into extreme terrain. Each court carries its own personality. Vines wrap through one court, alive and shifting, while another tilts across freezing water and grinding ice. A live volcano closes the list, where a single step out of bounds could mean a step out of life. Designers wanted each court to feel like a naturalistic extension of its world, not a stage bolted onto it. Lee lays out the basic concept behind every stadium. An iconic, massive shape sits at the center of a city, atop a mountain, or in the middle of an ocean, so anyone can find it and watch the game unfold. Cheers erupt inside the film's world, one such crowd gathering. Only one stadium actually exists in production. The crew simply redresses it for each biome, and Vineland shares an identical footprint with the Magma Stadium, yet nothing in the finished film gives that away. Early talks with Tyree and Adam, and especially Jang and Rich, who handled the world designs, pushed the team toward immersion rooted in something that felt real. Research came first. Reference piled up fast, image after image, until looks specific enough to mark each region on site took shape. Vineland holds a special place, the birthplace of Roarball, Greenblum explains, and its arena, called the Greenhouse, stands as a shrine to the game itself. Nothing about it feels invented. Daskus points to Angkor Wat and other Cambodian temples for reference. Enormous stones wrapped in thick, ancient vines with carved reliefs along the outside depicting long-ago players. The whole structure reads like a temple built for the sport. Every biome draws its obstacles from the natural elements built into the environment, turning the setting itself into a hazard. Nothing here holds still. In Vineland, living roots and vines trip, block, or ensnare players outright, lashing out mid-play to catch a runner and drag him down, a shout for the ball cutting through the clip. That vine system functions like a character in its own right, its presence built specifically to push the difficulty higher. Sunken City marks a deliberate shift, Rosette notes, since each biome serves a distinct story purpose, and this cave-bound arena arrives exactly when Will hits his lowest point in the film. Danger hangs from every angle. The setting sits underground, inside a hollowed-out cave lit like Vegas, lights and activity flickering somewhere in the background. Stalactites and stalagmites hang overhead and underfoot alike, forcing players to watch both their heads and their feet. Greenblum calls this the level-up version of the arena. Debris rains without warning. Falling stalactites could split a player clean in half, and panic breaks out, Will shouting into the chaos, dodging chunks of rock from the ceiling. Small creature sounds, a squeak and a bleat, cut through the same clip, quick proof that the cave stays crowded and alive even at its most dangerous. The team travels high into the mountains for this stretch, part of a montage where the group finally clicks into a unit. Momentum builds fast. Real-world basketball supplies the punchline. The Denver Nuggets once played in a mile-high stadium, and Roarball tops that by 100 times over, floating 100 miles up. Stone forms the base of this arena too, just like Vineland's, but the color shifts, embellished with Tibetan-inspired patterns and palettes to set it apart. The look changes completely. Topaz lines the backboards, work directly into the stonework. Every arena carries its own net design. Vineland weaves its net from living vines, while the mountain court strings its net from topaz beads instead. Extra complexity opens up at center court. A giant hole yawns wide mid-game, raising the challenge considerably. The stakes rise instantly. Crossing the middle of the court now means risking a fall of thousands of feet. One line from the finished film catches a producer's ear, a boast about squad loyalty, and it earns an approving laugh in the room. Time in the desert arena brings sandstorms and rolling dust clouds into a hostile stretch of court. Visibility drops to nearly nothing. Oswalt imagines the appeal of playing through it anyway. With sight gone, instinct alone has to carry a player across the sand. He jokes that he is that very bird, feeling his way through the storm on nerve alone. When a team goes cold and can't hit a shot, falling apart under pressure, this is where they end up. On ice, literally. The ice glows constantly. Northern lights wash the arena in color, the aurora borealis lighting everything from above. Lee places it on a floating island at the center of the Arctic Ocean, flying high enough above the water that every surface turns sharp and reflective. Ice makes up most of the surface, but metal and diamonds run through it too, marking this the most technologically advanced arena of the six. A massive jumbotron anchors a full light show overhead. Ice breaks fast. Here, the court itself cracks apart mid-game and a roar tears through the crowd, players smashing straight through the surface, play continuing around the damage. A producer laughs off the destruction with a quip about the claw failing to hold, and Will offers a quick thanks in response. For one producer, mittens ruin the fun entirely. An arena like the ice court all but requires them, and that alone kills the appeal. Give him lava instead. Any day he'd trade the cold for heat without hesitation. Rosette frames the championship battle, a stretch when the entire world seems to turn against the team, descending into the underworld itself. Danger defines this one. They play out the finale in a volcano. Oswalt zeroes in on the risk of it, of every court in the film. The lava arena reads like the one where death actually feels possible. Black molten ash forms the court's surface, Dillahay explains, with lava lining the entire perimeter. Fire and lava together bring this court to life in a way none of the others manage. The volcano erupts. Tyree and Adam pushed hard for an arena that felt dynamic rather than static, and the result plays like a literal inferno underfoot. A pained grunt cuts through the clip, the heat closing in on someone mid-play. The room roars back. That single beat makes for a great climactic ending. Every court reacting the way it does raises the stakes of whatever sequence it holds. These courts bring an excitement the franchise hasn't delivered before, in ways the team keeps circling back to. Greenblum sums it up simply: the whole design screams competition at its most extreme. A groan cuts through the clip mid-sentence, one last beat of on-screen strain before her point lands. That's the ultimate competition, in her own words, and the special ends there. Sport draws its community from culture no less than competition, and one producer points to fashion and swag as the real hook. Sneakers anchor the look first. Social media and music videos widen it, stitching in references that either land an inside joke or a shared laugh. Even the accessories carry weight, as every animal on screen wears clothes built to signal exactly what's popping. The film pulls that entire world onto the screen without losing its texture. Pop culture references pile up fast enough that the film folds them in without forcing anything, the producer explains. Tech and social media weave through every scene. Viral clips count too. On screen, a boast about putting a fresh move on the big screen draws a startled interruption from a teammate, and cheers ripple through the crowd right behind it. That instinct hits real athletes constantly, and it earns a genuine role inside the story. One character teases his teammates to check out what he's been working on, and basketball's own social media culture earns a nod in turn, as the film laughs at the same jokes fans already share, down to the bits about memes and online clapbacks. Oswalt owns up to the sheer range on display, catching him off guard. Few contemporary sports films, in his experience, juggle this many cultural threads at once. On screen, a confident voice announces the arrival of main season. A groan sounds off to the side. That rivalry, one producer notes, plays out like a live battle between Jet and Maine, an on-camera face-off where the two go head-to-head. The clip turns to trash talk as one accuses the other of being crazy, and the insult boomerangs right back over a hairpiece that doesn't match, texture and all, ending in a low, animal growl. Music carries real weight in these sequences, as a producer notes entire montages built on hip-hop beats. Overlap between the two worlds runs both ways. Rappers chase a baller's swagger and ballers chase a rapper's mic, though nobody treats the comparison too seriously. Dawson calls it a running joke that never quite goes away. A giraffe's low caw punctuates the beat. Pressed further, Dawson allows that he takes it a little more seriously than he first let on. That devotion to the game, to the Fillmores, and to the sneaker store runs deep, a producer says, and the film underlines it with a chant the crowd takes up twice over. Among the designers, a self-described sneakerhead wanted that same devotion built into the movie itself, calling sneaker culture its own niche community. A boom cuts in from off-screen. Admiration for a pair of Fillmore 4s draws a single dismissive word back from someone unconvinced. Animation removes the usual limits, the designer explains, so every pair of sneakers can go flashy, however the story needs, tailored down to each character's personality. Look closely at what any character wears, a designer suggests, and the clothing reads like a straight reflection of culture, a detail the filmmakers treated as essential. To pull it off, the production brought in a live-action costume designer and stylist to outfit the athletes and hand each one an individual style and personality. Tyree, the design lead, opened up real freedom to explore a wide range of looks, starting from working-class animals. The threat lands fast, keep wearing the other team's colors, and the door awaits. High-end pieces enter the mix next, folded in against that working-class base to widen the range even further. Inside the production, the tunnel walk earns its own nickname, the Fashion Tunnel. Athletes stride into the arena like gladiators, and the camera lingers on Jet, fitted down to her socks with a whole vibe built into every seam. Applause breaks out for her entrance. Pearlescent beads catch the light across her shoulders, paired with a boat neck cut to show off muscle and a pair of sleek trousers underneath. Overall, the look reads intimidating but sexy at once, closer to chic than aggressive. A voice off-screen approves twice over, clearly won over, will never really takes the uniform off, the designer notes. Wherever he goes, he's already dressed for basketball. That choice matters, establishing him early as an ordinary kid nursing outsized dreams. Watching him grow into a cool bomber jacket and catwalk-ready looks lets that dream play out in real time, right down to a boastful line about looking every bit the equal of how he plays. For Archie, the reference point shifts entirely as the designer pulls from Pharrell's recent Louis Vuitton collection to land on something minimalist, sleek, and elevated. The result reads pure sophistication. That bird draws a double take on screen. Nobody expected an ostrich to look this fly, and a nearby voice calls Olivia out by name for it. Patent leather green wraps her in a striking skirt, high socks and sneakers finish it. The whole combination feels grounded and authentically her, the designer says, rather than costume for costume's sake. Birds of a feather, the designer adds, look fly together in this film. Lenny, the team's giraffe, plays the laid-back one, easygoing where everyone else runs intense. A teammate teases him for skipping the uniform entirely. He just laughs it off, as the jerseys tear away by design. Jimi Hendrix supplies the reference point for his look, the designer explains, something funky and a little eclectic rather than sharp. Chill defines him more than anything else. The team's own anthem returns for a callback on screen, and he warms to it, taking to the sound of it. Off camera, he shrugs off the fact that he tends to make people uneasy without quite knowing why. Moto earns iconic status, the designer says. Chokers, piercings, and shifting nail polish build the look. Borrowed loosely from Dennis Rodman's whole aesthetic and vibe, Dawson calls his fashion the most daring in the film. The wild card of the Vineland Thorns, Moto answers to no one's expectations because he isn't afraid, confident simply in who he is. Even a teammate's line about him being almost too much of a snack lands like pure admiration. Main season returns with a boast on screen, self-declared and unbothered. That title functions as more than a nickname. It's his mantra, practically his heartbeat, and he wants every ounce of gym work on display. A line about getting serious cuts the joking short, followed by a threat about chains coming off if pushed. Gold tooth, icy necklaces, pure boss. Rick Owens supplies the reference for his black, minimalist aesthetic, the designer says, exclusive gear built to feel like streetwear nobody else can get. A boast about serious money erupts on screen, greeted by the whole team at once. Swagger runs straight through the fashion, a designer explains, suit up together, and the group reads as an intimidating force before a single shot goes up. Dawson reduces it to two acts of dressing, the suit and the hat, that flip something internal in whoever wears them. Nobody misses the effect. This merger of pop culture and sports resists separation entirely, a producer adds. Two hosts open with a greeting, promising a rundown of the film's Easter eggs. One host describes weeks spent hunting for them, then clarifies these have nothing to do with the holiday. Hidden details, tucked into individual frames, reward anyone willing to look closely, the hosts explain, promising that more than a few will turn up on repeat viewings. A goat character interrupts. Nothing escapes it, it claims. Plenty of finds, the hosts add, wait to be shared. With NBA 2K standing this firmly as a fixture in basketball culture, the hosts own up to a PlayStation nod feeling necessary, and they set out to find the right spot for it. In the film, a character invites a friend to play a game called Roar 2K, echoing the real title. Adam Rosette points to where the reference actually landed, printed across Hannah's t-shirt. Small print, big joke. On screen, Hannah answers with a request for a hug, laughing through it. No Sony Pictures animation film goes without a bagel somewhere in it, the hosts note. A shout to catch it lands right when the bagel appears on screen. Slipping it in, the animators meant it for a quiet nod to Spider-Verse, where a bagel plays a much bigger role in the opening film. Elsewhere in the same clip, a quick swap gag catches one character off guard. A scientist character chases after the thief, demanding to know where he thinks he's going, and someone nearby confirms the bagel is already gone. Another callback ties this film to Mitchell's vs. The Machines, a small moose tchotchke tucked into Dennis's box the instant he moves out of the Thorns' locker room. The host asks whether anyone remembers how a moose expresses love, and the answer arrives in a single bellow from off-screen. Crediting the crew behind the film, the hosts point to names belonging to the animators and production team appearing as Easter eggs across the backs of jerseys throughout the movie. A grunt and a growl mark the transition back into footage before the next reveal. Will's trip to a sneaker shop hides another name. The store's sign reads as a nod to Tyree, rendered Tyree Resale. It kind of all makes sense, one host allows with a laugh, and a beat of shared amusement closes the segment. Casting themselves alongside the crew gave both hosts one of their favorite parts of the process. Plenty of production staff besides them landed cameo voices too, the hosts add. In character, Frank grumbles about mouths to feed and insists he doesn't need another, setting up the reveal to come. Producer Michelle Ramo Kuyate voices Frank's wife, and her one line announcing another pregnancy lands with a laugh built right into the delivery. Michelle's own son, Angelo, voices the lizard kid, whose two-word outburst calling for Jet cuts straight through the take. On screen, a character needles Pete over a stalled championship run and tells him flatly to retire, while another line mourns how full this place used to be. Tyree Dillahay voices Pete, and off-camera he points out a second cameo hiding in plain sight, an old photo of himself, a baby still in diapers, tucked into the same frame. Picking a take back up from a chosen line, the hosts introduce Maximus, the film's voiceover bunny. Adam Rosette plays him, drawing a laugh from the room before both men echo the character's own catchphrase back at each other. Vineland's deep-voiced boast that the team didn't just invent Roarball, but defines it, plays straight from the film. Joe LaPuma voices Sneaky, a vulture character, and one host teases him on camera about whether he's actually up for the bit. Who better for the part, the hosts joke, than the man who built complex media from nothing? A couple of well-known sports voices round out the cast. Aaron Andrews voices Vineland's announcer, opening the broadcast by asking the crowd if they're ready. Mike Breen takes the booth too, though legal limits kept him from delivering the exact Curry catchphrase the team wanted. A sound effect stands in where that line would have gone, and the hosts admit they wish it could have made it in. A dunk from Maine over Grizz hides a deliberate callback, the same beat behind Allen Iverson's famous step-over on Tyronn Lue. In character, Vineland's own trash talk claims the cage, not the film's fictional court, for Roarball's true birthplace, and a whinny punctuates the boast. No rundown of Easter eggs would skip the living goat, the host insists, Stephen Curry. A bleat and a shared laugh mark the turn into that section. Dillahay walks through the details built around Will's game. A mouthguard he chews on through several sequences, plus a small dance he breaks into mid-play, both trace back to real basketball habits. Modeled shot for shot, Will's release copies Steph Curry's own shooting form down to the follow-through. Rosette adds one more, the signature celebration Will pulls at the end of a game had to make the cut, and a delighted response confirms it landed exactly right. Dillahay singles out the biggest Easter egg of all, saved for the final game. The team draws from an Olympic moment of Curry's, a towering Rainbow 3 launched over Wembanyama, and folds that same shot into Will's championship-winning basket. Cheers erupt the instant it drops through. The hosts note plenty more Easter eggs scattered through the film. One reveals that a delivery driver in the background wears a Magma jersey, drawing a gasp from the room. Keep watching closely, they tell viewers, and pass along anything spotted. Over the closing footage, the film's own announcer calls the Thorns win, sending the team on to the Claw.